which we will discuss in this presentation. One is, what is the need of using machine learning in the field of...
Sir,
Yes.
your screen is not visible. Your web camera is visible.
Okay. Let me...
Hello.
Yes, I'm just fixing up the problem. How about now, sir?
Yes. Now, sir, it is visible.
It is visible, but I did not start the slideshow. So let me start the slideshow. Maybe then there might be a problem. Okay.
Yeah. Now it's visible, sir.
Okay. Thank you. So maybe someone's mic is on. So I would request to put the mic on. Okay. Okay. Thank you. So first of all, regarding this faculty development program, so I appreciate your patience during the inaugural ceremony. So there was some technical glitch during the inaugural ceremony, but all of you were so supportive that we could do it in a good way. So anyways, so in the presentation, these are some of the main contents of machine learning applications in agriculture. One is, what is the need of using machine learning in the field of agriculture? Then we'll discuss what actually machine learning is and what are the requirements when we are applying the machine learning models to the agriculture. Then, because the computer vision plays a major role in machine vision, so we'll discuss what computer vision does when we write the machine learning algorithm, especially for the agriculture applications. Then we also discuss what are the different machine learning methods available. Some of the frameworks are ready-made, we can just pick and use. And but sometimes we need to design our customized machine learning models. Then we'll discuss a little about the remote sensing data, which is used for training the machine learning models for the agriculture applications. Then we'll discuss about how machine learning can help us to diagnose the different plant diseases. And also machine learning is used for crop yield prediction and also for the pesticide control. In pesticide control, we make use of the GPS as well, because we want to know where exactly at what location we need to spray the pesticides. So these are the overall contents we'll discuss in the remaining slides. Okay, so first, what is the need of using machine learning in agriculture field? So as I hope you know about the Sustainable Development Goal, the 17 in number, which were set up by United Nations in the year 2015. So out of these 17 Sustainable Development Goals, you can see the goal 2, which is the zero hunger. It is very directly related with our agriculture. If we can produce good quality of food and appropriate amount of food, so obviously we can achieve this goal, which is supposed to be done by year 2030. But these all the 17 sustainable development goals are interrelated with each other. So if we achieve one goal, so it will help us to achieve the other goals as well. So that means if we apply some latest machine learning techniques in the field of agriculture, we can produce more food, so that we can not only achieve the sustainable development goal, which is a zero hunger, but also we can we can achieve the other goals like no poverty, then good health and well-being, and so on. So we should use these machine learning techniques to achieve this target till 2030. Okay. So when it comes to agriculture, there is lot of things which cannot be predicted very well. For example, there is always what we expect and the reality is different, not only in agriculture but in daily life also. We expect something, we dream of something, but in reality sometimes it goes the other way. So I put some figures, animated figures here. For example, for a farmer, his dream or the expectation is that once he put the seeds in the field, he will get sufficient amount of water so that his crop yield is good one. However, in reality, what happens? There may be drought and there is water shortage. In that case, the crop yield is not what he had dreamed of or what he had expected. So there is always uncertainty in the field of agriculture or farming. So now the point here is, can we make use of machine learning methods to predict the climate changes so that proactively we can take the actions. So for that, uh, the agriculture and climate change. So we, in the previous slide, we discussed about the water resources shortage, but that is not only the thing. So whenever there is climate change, it has effect on the agriculture. So please look at the bottom. So the climate changes impacts on the temperature, rainfall, and pollution negatively impact agriculture production. If the climate changes are there, sudden climate changes are there which are not predicted by the farmer, there is high temperature or large rainfall, in that case, or the pollutions, in that case the agriculture production will get reduced. And similarly, it is a cycle. Due to agriculture there is climate change. If the agriculture is not done in a proper way, if the farming is not uh, done in a proper way, for example, the gas emissions from the agriculture, chemical uses, the soil and crop management on the top, and the transportation contribute to the climate change. So it is a cycle where agriculture affects the climate change and the climate change affects the agriculture. So we'll try to see if we can use the machine learning techniques so that we can predict the climate change so that we can have more yield from the farming. Okay, so maybe on the left hand side, this is the crop potential. So when we sow the crop seeds, so the crop is a lot of potential. So we can get good amount of crop yield, but the idea here is that we should have the appropriate nutrients and appropriate fertilizers, appropriate amount of water, and the temperature conditions. However, on the right hand side, sometimes the crop yield is not that good. Why? Because of the factors that the water is not proper, or the temperature level is not good, or humidity conditions are not that appropriate for the crop to give us the yield which to the maximum potential of the crop. So that means if we can use the machine learning techniques so that we can predict the not only the climate changes, but we can sense the different parameters, the soil conditions and the humidity, etc., so that we can take the appropriate actions to increase the crop yield. So let me discuss later about the learning, not about the machine learning at this moment. In general, what learning is. So as we know that we learn from our experiences. So the day we are born, after that we have different experiences, and from the experiences we learn. So if we divide the learning paradigm into different steps, so first one is what are the sensing. So let me relate it to the agriculture. So what are the current needs of the crop? So when we see a crop, we should sense what are the current needs of the crop, how much water the crop needs what is the right temperature this crop needs at that moment, and what are the nutrients we should give to the crop so that the yield is maximum. And similarly, the light amount and how much air is needed for that crop. And this is dynamic in nature, right? For the complete cycle from the we put the seeds to the we harvest the crop during this period. So we have different amounts of nutrients we need, different amounts of water we need, light, air, and the temperature variation we need. Say that means if we know the current needs of the crop, that will help us to have better yield when we harvest the crop. The second point is available sources, the kind of inputs. So although from the sensing we know that how much temperature is currently needed in to the crop, how many nutrients or what amount of nutrients we need for the crop, how much water we need, but we should also have how much resources we have for the insecticides, water, say fertilizers or the nutrients, and how we can control the temperature. So we should know the what is the current need of the crop, and we should also know what are the resources available to us so that we can cope up with those needs of the crop. Then the third point comes about the decision. So depending upon what is the current need of the crop and what are the available sources, then we make decisions, right? What kind of input should be given to the crop and by how much amount. So that is why the precision agriculture is known as doing the things at the right time, in the right amount, in the right place, in the right location. So we make a decision depending upon the need of the crop, depending upon the resources available, then we act depending upon the decision we take. So this is not applicable only for farming, but in any other daily matter, we have to sense, then we see what resources are available, then we'll take the decision and act. So the farmers also do the same thing. They do the sensing, they see what are the resources available, then they make the decision and act. And this is not one time thing. So the fourth point is feedback, repeat every year and learn. So then farmers learn from the past experiences also, right? So one in a year, so they sense, they see what are the resources, then they take the decision, they act. Depending upon what action they taken and what was the result, they will use that experience in the next year for the better amount of yield. Similarly, we want the machines to learn the same thing the farmers learn from the experiences. So machine learning also uses the past needs of the crops and the resources which were available and what actions were taken, and based on the results we got, the machines will give us the recommendations. So once the machine gives the recommendation, we can act accordingly. So you see, it is machine learning. Machine learning, we don't say it as computer learning. So because computer means the device which computes something. But in machine learning, it is not that it only computes, but it learns from the data. So that slide I put in the next few slides. So the difference of machine learning from the computer. Okay, so these two figures are again showing the learning on the left hand side. This is a manual learning by the farmer. So whenever there is plowing by the farmer, he doesn't only do that task, but he also looks at the sand, the moisture, the humidity, so many conditions he looks, he learns, and then apply that manually. But nowadays, because of the advancement of electronics, we are having the electronic sensors. So we, instead of the farmer looking at the various parameters of the soil or the other environmental conditions and to take the actions, so we have the sensors, as we can, let me drag down this window to other side. Okay, so we have some electronic sensors. These sensors will sense what is the present water level and what is the present temperature. Accordingly, the machine learning algorithm will give us the recommendation. Shall we give more water, less water, or what conditions we should change so that our crop yield is more. Okay, so when we talk about machine learning is a tool. Just like we have 26 alphabets, 26 alphabets in English is a tool, and using these 26 alphabets, we can write the articles in the diverse fields, like we can write articles in history, geography, and literature. We can write poems and so on. And similarly, machine learning is a tool which can be used in diverse applications, not only in agriculture. So I put some of the pictures at the bottom. For example, the first one is on the medical imaging. So whenever we go for the CT scans, so the doctors will take the CT scan, then he will look at the computer if there is any cancerous tissue or not, right? So, but nowadays we can use the machine learning algorithms to automatically detect the cancerous portions in the CT scan. And similarly, machine learning is being used in the smart cities, in the construction, and of course, in the agriculture. So the idea of putting this slide is that machine learning is a tool, the way we use the different tools like say your hammer or plier to fix up many problems. The machine learning also help us to fix up many problems in different disciplines of society. Okay, so if we divide the machine learning methods, mainly we can divide into two categories. One is supervised learning, other is unsupervised learning. So because this audience is say around 150 participants are there, I've seen the list. Some of the participants are from engineering and technology background, and some of the participants are also school teachers. So I will make this discussion not very difficult and not very easy so that it is appropriate for everyone to understand. So machine learning is basically divided into two parts. One is supervised learning, other is unsupervised learning. So in supervised learning, there are different categories, and depending upon for what application we want to use the machine learning, we choose that subcategory. For example, the supervised learning can be used for classification of objects. It can be used for regression analysis, where we put some mathematical equation from the data. And for the classification, we can have different tools like sport vector machine, naive Bayesian algorithms, and nearest neighborhood. Then in regression also, we can use the neural networks and multi-linear regression models. And in unsupervised learning, basically we use it for clustering the data. If we are having a data without any labels, so we can divide into different groups. And for that, the tools are say k-means clustering and fuzzy C means clustering or median clustering. So we'll take example of the classification in our hands-on later on in this session with Python using Google Colab, and also the clustering using the k-means clustering when we use GPS for the pesticide distribution. Okay, so coming to the difference between the traditional programming which we do on the computer and the machine learning. In the traditional programming which we do on a computer, what we do is we have input data, we write some program in the computer, and we get the output. For example, I write a program for adding two numbers. So in that case, our data will be two numbers. The input will be two numbers. Say I give two inputs as 5 and 10. And I have written a program that the two data points should be added. So at the output, I will get 15 as the output, because 5 and 10 is the input data, and I have written the program for adding these two input data, and I will get 5 plus 10 equal to 15. However, machine learning is different from the traditional programming. In this case, we give the input and also we give the output, and we want to see what is the connection between the input and output. For example, we give some data points, and out of those data points, the input data points, some of the data points belong to one category, one class of the objects, other may belong to other class of the objects. So we give this data point belongs to this class, this data point belongs to this class. Then machine learning will try to learn from those input and output data points. So it will try to learn from the association between the input and output, so that later on when we give some new data, it should able to give us what class it belongs to. Okay, so if we see what are the different steps in the machine learning, so it starts from the gathering of data. So when we talk about, say, medical imaging, so we get the data from the CT scan, we can get the data from the ultrasound. And if, let us say, we use the machine learning for banking, then we take that, gather the data like the account number, the details of the customers, and so on. But when we talk about machine learning in agriculture, we gather the data from different sensors which are used in agriculture. It may be pH of the soil, it may be the humidity, it may be the conductivity meter, or it may be the data which is captured by the camera which is installed on the UAVs or the drones. So this data is nothing but numbers which is obtained from the sensors. Then after we get the data either from the pH sensor, or for the humidity sensor, or from the temperature sensor which is installed in the field, we have to prepare the data. The meaning of preparing the data is that whenever we get the data from, say, temperature sensor, and also we have the data from the conductivity sensor. So in that case, both the sensors will not give us the similar data. So we have to prepare the data in such a way that both the data come on the same platform, so that we can use it in the machine learning algorithms. So we do some processing on the data which is gathered by the sensor, so that we can apply it in the machine learning models. The third point, once we do some preparation of the data, and let me tell you, this preparation of data is also when we do some, say, noise removal in the data, that also comes under preparation of the data. So once we prepare the data, then we have to choose the model. So as we see later in this talk, there are several models available in machine learning. Some of the models are ready-made, you can just pick and use, and some of the models you can customize, you can tailor it. So you have to choose the right model for your application, and it comes with repetitions and with experiences, which model is most suitable for your application. So once we choose the model, we have got the data, we choose the model, then we train the data. So we have got a data from different sensors put in the field, and we have selected some model. Let us say, we'll come later about the model. Say we have used convolutional neural networks model. So in that case, we'll apply that data to the convolutional neural network model. CNN, I will say in short from now onwards. So CNN is a machine learning model, and let us say it takes the data, which is the images captured by the camera installed on the drone. So we have taken the data from the drone camera, and we have chosen the model, which is our CNN model. Then we will train the model. The training here means we know the class for each data. So let us say from the image, we get the from the camera installed on the drone, we get the images. In the images, we know within the image where is the wheat crop, where is the, say, paddy crop, and where is some other crop. So that, based on those classes, we train the model. We'll see in a moment with hands-on how we can train the model. So once we train the model, we get a trained model. Then we need to evaluate the model, whether our model performance is good enough or not. For that, we are having some validation data, because whenever we get a data from the sensor, we divide it into two parts. One is the training data, other is validation data. Say 90% of the data we use for the training, and say 10% we use for evaluation purpose. So we use the data which we reserved for the evaluation to see the performance of the model. If the performance of the model is good enough, then we can use that model. But before that, so coming to the sixth point, we have to do some hyperparameter tuning. So when we choose some model, let us say we have chosen convolutional neural network. In this convolutional neural network, there are so many parameters and hyperparameters we need to sometimes manually tune, so that the performance of the model is up to the desired level. So we do that tuning again and again to increase the performance of our model. So once we have properly tuned the model, then we use it for prediction. So using it for prediction means we have the trained data, a trained model, and which is giving us good output, and we have tuned it very well. Then we can get the data from the sensor at some moment of time. Then it will predict the class. So predict the class means, say we capture the image, the new image with the drone, then it will tell us how much is the yield, or where is the wheat, or where is the paddy, or where is some other crop. Okay, so the flow chart of the machine learning is shown in this slide. So let me use some pointer here if it is useful. So we have the raw data. So it is in coherence with the previous slide. So if you remember, the first step I said is the raw data. Raw data is coming from sensor. It may be any sensor. It may be, say, your camera. Camera is also your sensor. It may be your conductivity sensor. It may be your pH sensor, humidity, temperature, and water level, etc. So once we get the raw data, we need to do the processing on the data. So if there is some noise, we have to remove that noise, or we have to make the data from all the sensors on the same platform. For that, sometimes we need to normalize the data. So as we see, that part we'll see in the hands-on when we do when we will develop a machine learning model using Python in Colab. So we'll see how do we do the data processing from the camera data. Then we do some sampling. Sometimes we get a data which is sampled at different rate, and we want to resample it. So sometimes we need to resample the data also. It may be interpolation, or it may be we can skip some of the data points if the amount of data is becoming large. So anyway, so after data processing and sampling, we divide the data into two parts. One is a training set and other is a validation set. As I said that out of the complete data which we obtain, so roughly 80% or 90% we use it for training, and rest of the 10% or 20% we use it for the validation. Please take care, in machine learning, there are three types of data sets. One is called training data set, other is validation data set, and the third one is the test data set. The test data set is not shown on this slide, so that this person, this icon, right? So this is basically giving your test data. So where I have written new data, it is the test data. So first, when we want to train the machine learning model and we want to validate the machine learning model, we use the training data as well as the validation data. We don't use the test data. So what we do is, with the training, we have got the training data set, then we build a model. Building a model means first we have to choose the model, as I've discussed in the previous slide. So we have to choose a model from a set of already available models, or we can tailor our own model. So once we make the model, so this training set, data set we give to the model to train this machine learning model. Once we train this machine learning model, then we use the validation data set on this trained model and see what is the validation accuracy. So there are many metrics to check how good your trained model is. It may be accuracy, it may be the precision, it may be the true positive, false negative, true negative, and so on. So once the performance of the model is up to our desired level, then we can say that our model is ready to use. If it is not, then we will again analyze our model, and maybe we have to do some manual tuning so that we get the desired accuracy from the model. So once this thing is over, then you come to this bottom of slide. So we give the new data. New data means where the data on which we don't know anything about that class. We have taken image from the drone and we do not know what is the condition of the crop, right? So one is we want to see whether that crop is healthy or it is suffering from some disease, right? So if we have trained the model in such a way that we have divided the classes in two classes, one is healthy, other is with the disease. So when we give the image to the machine learning model, it will tell whether the field is having the healthy crop or the crop is having some disease. Okay, so this slide is also in coherence with the previous two slides. Basically, in machine learning, we are having this environmental parameter is the data which we give. So when we give the data, you see in the sensors, we get lot of data. So nowadays, we are not having our own data, but there are many resources available where we can get data. For example, we have the Landsat data from the satellites. We have Sentinel data from the satellites. Those the sensors are installed on those satellites. They will continuously monitor the Earth, and we can give our GPS locations where our field is, and we can download the satellite data from the Landsat dataset and from the Sentinel dataset. From those datasets, we can use along with our own sensor data and develop the machine learning algorithm. So the point here is that the data nowadays is huge, and that makes the application of machine learning a good success these days. Because if we don't have much data, we cannot make the machines to learn in a better way. So nowadays, because of the satellite imagery, we have got a lot of data available. Some of the data is free and some of the data we have to access with some subscriptions. So in any way, when we get the data from the satellites, along with the data from the sensors which we have installed in our field, we get a huge amount of data. If we use all that huge amount of data for our machine learning model, the machine will take a lot of time to learn from that data. Please listen it very carefully. So we want to take all the data, because if more data is available, that is good for us, right? The machine can learn in a better way. But at the same time, we do not want to use a lot of data because it will
3 साल लगा कर देंगे ये जो पैसा लगाया वो 3 साल पहले आप मांग लेते वो पैसा इन्वेस्टमेंट उसकी कंपनी में 3 साल लगेगी.
I want to take the feedback. Am I clearly audible?
Yes, sir.
One of you, please.
Yes,
Okay.
sir, audible.
Okay, thank you very much. So our raw data, you please listen this point very carefully. We have got a lot of data. From where the data is coming? The data is coming from the sensors which we have installed in our field, right? And also we have the data which is available from the satellites. So in combination, we have got huge amount of data. On one side, it is good because more the data, more good it is, more beneficial it is for the machine to learn. The second point here is somebody is trying to annotate it. So maybe I will give the approval, but I think it should not be much distractions. Okay. So if anybody wants to add, okay, is it for me? I guess it is. Okay, thank you. So I was talking, there is huge amount of data that is good, right? But at the same time, it will take a lot of computational power of our computer. So that means we want to use only that data which is useful for the machine to learn. For example, let me take an analogy. How do we recognize a person, right? So we say that this person is blah, blah, blah. How? Because we look at the eyes or the shape of the nose or the ears or his or her voice or his walking style, right? So these are called some of the features of some person. We have some facial features, whether a person's face is round or oval, right? So if you see the face is, if you take the image of face, it is a huge data. But if you take only the features, say eye features, nose features, and we are not taking much of the other data. Also the skin color we take a small patch instead of taking the complete face of the complete skin of the face. That will solve our purpose. So the feature vector is also is the same similar thing. So instead of taking the huge amount of the satellite data, we extract some useful data. So we get a subset from the huge data which is useful for the machine to learn. So that we call in computer vision as feature vector. Vector is what? The array of elements. Here each element is one feature. For example, in the in the face image, if we take eyes, we take nose, if we take say lips, so we get a feature vector of three features: eyes, nose, and say lips, right? So similarly, in satellite data or sensor data, we extract some features. So this feature extraction is manual in machine learning. However, manual feature learning is very time consuming and it is subjective. Sometimes we choose features which are not that good, and sometimes we don't choose the filters which are good, right? So nowadays we are using the deep learning algorithms, the deep learning machine learning algorithm, which do the task of using the feature selection. We need not to manually select the features. But anyway, so once we get the feature vector, we select the features. We have got many feature vectors, so we select the particular feature vector which we give to the machine learning model. Now there are two dotted boxes here, so please pay attention at the right one. So this is useful. The annotation is very useful. So please show pay attention here. Training phase. So testing phase will come later. So as we discussed in the previous slide, first we need to train the model, only then we will test it. So what model we have to train? So if we go to the previous slides, we have to choose a model. It may be a ready-made model, we have to, or we have to tailor a model. So let us say we chose some model. Now we have got the data. Now in this case, you see your data is not the direct environmental parameter, not this raw data, but we have chosen a subset of the data using the feature selection, and only that subset of data we have used for training. So once we have trained our model, say 80% of the data or the features we have used for training, our model is trained. After that, we use the rest of the 20% data which we kept for the validation. So validation data means we know the ground truth and we just try to see whether our model is giving us the output which is matching with our ground truth or not. For example, I give some wheat image to the model, and our model gives us the output, it is wheat, and ground truth is also wheat. In that case, we'll say that our model is properly trained. However, if we give a wheat crop data to the trained model and it is saying it is paddy, right? So in that case, that means our model has not been trained yet. So again, we'll go on more iterations so that it is trained. So that is the purpose of validation. So once with the validation, we have seen that it has come to the desired accuracy, then we choose some best algorithm. So in machine learning model, there are many algorithms are available, optimization algorithms available, which are used to give us the best accuracy. For example, we have the RMS prop or ADAM, many other optimization algorithms are there. Okay, then once we get the trained model, then we say our model is ready. We can use it for our new data. So we see whether the validation accuracy is up to our level. If it is, that means our model is properly trained. Now, this extracted trained model, you see it is coming here. So this is our trained model up to our satisfaction. Then we give the testing data. So testing data means we get a new image from the drone and we want to see how much is the yield, or is it a wheat or rice. Then this model will predict it. You see here in the test data, we don't know the ground truth. That is why we are using the machine learning model. In validation, we know the ground truth and we just want to use this so that we can train it up to our desired level. So once we have trained, we don't know about the ground truth, but we predict it. And we believe that our the prediction given by the machine learning model is correct. So then it will give us the predicted output. Okay, so let me go to the next one. No, it is not moving to the next slide. So if anybody is having idea, can you tell me?
Yes, sir, I have two questions. So
Yes,
first question is, which software I have to use to generate and update my model? If say I have data in CSV file or images.
yeah. So as I said that machine learning is a tool. So we can give the data, any kind of data, and that data, the machine will take it as zeros and ones. As we know that the data is taken by the machine as zeros and one. If it is a, what type of data did you tell? I forgot.
So my data is in CSV file, simple Excel or
Okay,
CSV
okay.
file format.
So your data is in CSV file. So it can read your CSV file also. It can read your data in the image file also.
So which software I have to use?
So there are many softwares available for taking the data in the machine learning model. Some of the software I can list. One is you can use Spider. You can use Google Colab. Then there is Anaconda software. Then there is PyTorch. So we'll have a hands-on using Colab software. It is from the Google, and we'll see how it can read the images, and also it can read the CSV files, Excel files as well.
Okay, sir. My second question is, how
Okay.
to use this model in IoT devices like Node MCU or Raspberry Pi?
Okay. So in IoT devices, you see again, so the requirement for machine learning model to work is the data, right? So it doesn't matter whether you are getting data from your image, you are getting data from IoT devices, you are getting from data from the Raspberry Pi. So that the thing is, once you get the data, you should be able to give that data to the machine learning model. Even you can write, give your text data, you can give your IoT data, any data you can give to the machine learning model. Does it answer
Uh,
your question or
yes,
partially?
means I basically means I have to run the machine learning software in my laptop. Then I will generate a model. Then My question is how to upload to it means Node MCU or Raspberry Pi to exactly do what it says through the
Okay.
IoT devices.
Okay. So I have never worked on the Raspberry Pi data, but what I would say that, so if you are able to get the data on your computer, then there is no problem of using that data in machine learning model.
Okay, means
Hello, sir.
Please go on. Yes.
Good afternoon, sir. Sir, I have a
Yes.
question that how to select this best algorithm for particular analysis. Like you have given in this slide that there is a means flow chart. How to select this best algorithm out of various algorithm we are having, like neural network and decision support vector machine like thing.
Random forest is also there. Yes.
Yeah,
So
random forest.
yes. So that depends on many factors. If we say this is the say, I say random forest is the best algorithm, right? Then remaining algorithms no one will use. So we cannot
Yeah.
say this method is the best one. Or all the methods can be used in different scenarios. So it will depend upon your application. Sometimes it is a kind of comes with the experience, and sometimes it is hit and trial method also. So what we do is we have the data. When we use, that is why this validation data we have kept. So let me put here, this validation data is very important. So in any machine learning model, so we use the validation data and we try this validation data on different models. Wherever we get the maximum accuracy, we try to choose that model.
Okay, okay. Miss, sir, we have to take one or more algorithm at a time to check the best accuracy.
Yes.
Okay, okay, sir. Thank you.
It depends actually, right? So sometimes from the literature, we come to know that for this application, for this data set, so people have worked on different algorithms and this algorithm performs best because of this reason. So if we read that literature, we need not to try the different algorithms. But of course, in research, we sometimes try different algorithms because maybe that person has used some algorithm based on some tuning parameters, and those tuning parameters were not selected in a good way. That is why that algorithm did not perform well. So that does not mean that that is not a good algorithm. Maybe he or she did not do the proper tuning of that algorithm. So we should not always rely on what is given in the literature. So we should, that is what we call as critical thinking or the meta analysis. Whenever we read some literature, we should know what under what conditions they are saying that this algorithm is best or this algorithm is not good. I hope it clears your question.
Yeah, it's clear, sir. Thank you so much.
Okay, okay, thank you.
Good afternoon,
So,
sir.
yes,
Hello.
ma'am. Yes,
Yeah,
ma'am.
sir, yeah, sir, I have one question. Sir, can you
Yeah.
please explain how do we do the hand labeling of the satellite images?
Hand labeling of satellite images. Okay. So when we download the satellite images from ISRO, we have a data set called Bhuvan. So if you are working in the satellite imagery, maybe you are knowing about that. Bhuvan is
Yeah.
providing the data satellite imagery. It is from ISRO. Then we are having Landsat data from the US department. Then we are having Sentinel data. So once we download this data set, satellite data set, there are different bands of the imaginary data. So maybe I have a couple of slides on that. So if you can wait for those slides to come, maybe your question will be clear. So
Okay, sir. Okay, thank you,
okay.
sir.
So if it doesn't clear your question in the next few slides, then please ask me again. We'll discuss it.
Okay, sir, thank you.
Okay, thank you. So let me go to the next slide. So maybe can anybody help me how to go to the next slide with this annotation? Maybe I am not able to go to the next slide.
So you can escape, stop the slideshow, and again you can start, sir.
Or maybe I just stop the annotation, maybe it will go now. Yes, it is going. Okay. So people are writing in the chat box also, but maybe I'm not looking into the chat box that much. So maybe later we can have discussion. Okay, so going to the next slide. So as we said that for any machine learning method to work, we need data. So data may be in the CSV file, it may be coming from your IoT devices, it may be coming from the images. Because I am working more on the images, so I have taken some examples using image data. So somebody's mic is on, so maybe if you put the microphone off, that will be good for giving me the presentation. Anyway, so if you see image data, usually we look, when we talk about image, we come to mind this kind of camera, the conventional camera. This conventional camera works in the visible region, right? So whenever there is no light, we cannot get a image. But when we use the cameras for collection of data for the fields in agriculture applications, we do not use only the conventional data, but we have many kinds of cameras installed either on the UAVs, drones, or in the field itself. So all these cameras work in different spectrum of electromagnetic spectrum. For example, we have gamma ray spectrum, we have X-rays, ultraviolet, visible, IR, microwave, and radio spectrum. So we have for each spectrum, we have different kind of camera. So for gamma region, for the X-rays, for the ultraviolet, for visible, for infrared, which we call as IR camera. Now it is very popular because of COVID. Then we having the Kinect camera. This camera we use for playing games on our computer, Kinect camera from Microsoft, right? The beauty of this camera is that it gives you the 3D information, whereas the conventional camera does not give you the 3D information. So we get the 3D information with this Kinect camera. Then also this red one on the right hand side is omnidirectional camera. It is from the Ladybug company. So what it does is there is one camera on the top and 5 cameras around this. So all these 1 plus 5 cameras, 6 cameras, they take the pictures from different angles. Then automatically this camera will combine all those images to give us a panoramic image. So we get 360-degree imagery from the field. So irrespective of what kind of camera we are using, is the idea here is we get some data, image data. Then that data, as we did in the previous slides, we gather the data from any of these cameras. The next step is the processing of this data. So we can remove some noise, or we can make the data different devices on the same platform. Okay, so when we talk about the digital image, please look at this this image now. So there are different boxes here. This is gray, then white, then little more gray, white, then gray, then black, and so on. So these are called images. So here this is some, say, field, some area. So when we take the picture of this this area, either using conventional camera or IR camera or your thermal camera, we get the image. Image is consisting of some pixels, and this each pixel is having some value. So say 170, 238, 85, 0. So 0 means it is black, and whenever there is white, it is 255. So that range is from 0 to 255. 0 means black, 255 means white, and in between is having different shades from black to white. So this 0 to 855 is basically represented, it is 256 levels, right? From 0 to 255, it is 256 levels. and it can be represented by 8 bits. If we see 2 raised to power 8 is 256. So that means this camera is your 8-bit camera. So if the resolution of the camera is say 16-bit, so it will give us more clear image. So anyway, so let us say we have the 8-bit camera. So it is giving us the image. That image is giving us actually these numbers. Now you see this is numbers. Then we give these numbers to the computer, to the machine learning model. So machine learning model will not come to know whether this is coming from some camera, it is coming from IoT, it is coming from some other sensor. It will just read these numbers, and it is up to you, up to us, that how do we store in machine learning algorithm about the meaning of these numbers. Okay, because we know that this data is coming from the images from say IR camera. So we know that this data belongs to the IR camera image. So then on the right hand side, I've shown 3 different boxes. One is red, green, and blue. So these are called the primary colors. So whenever we take some photograph with the camera, it is a RGB image. RGB image means there are 3 sensors. One is R, which detects the red component, other is green, other is blue. So depending on how much is the red component at some location in the field, how much is the green, how much is the blue, we get plenty of different other secondary colors. It is like a painter. So he or she uses say 3 colors, then he or she mixes these 3 primary colors in different proportions and get multiple colors. If we mix all these 3 colors in the same amount, it becomes black, white. If we don't mix any of the colors, obviously it will be black. And in between, we are getting different colors. Okay, so this is your difference between our human vision and the machine vision. We look at the photograph like shown on the left hand side, whereas on the right hand side is how a machine or the computer will read the image. So how we are getting these numbers, as we discussed in the previous slide, each image is divided into small portions called the pixel, and each pixel is having some value from 0 to 255. 255 means pure white and 0 means pure black. So depending upon the color at each point in the image, we get the corresponding numbers. So these numbers are very small, but actually this varies from 0 to 255. Okay, so let me quickly go through these slides. Then I will show you the hands-on on how to develop the machine learning model. Okay, so this slide is also in coherence with previous few slides which we discussed for machine learning model. So, but here we are fixing our data as the image data. So we have image acquisition. It is say coming from a camera installed on the UAV or the drone. Then we do the image pre-processing. So in coherence, we have the data gathering. Image acquisition is equivalent to the data gathering. The generic term is data gathering. Then the second block in machine learning we discussed in the previous slide was data processing. Here it is the image processing, the pre-processing before we give it to the machine learning model. Then we do the image segmentation. Once we do the image processing, we need to do the segmentation, means we want to take out the desired area from the image. Maybe all that image is not useful. When we are taking say satellite image or the image from the drone, so all that image may not be useful for the machine learning model. So we select which portion of the image is useful. It is kind of when we crop some image using some cropping tool. So we use some image segmentation, then we do the image post processing on the segmented image. First we do the processing on the complete image, then we do some processing on the segmented image, the subset of the full image. Then once we get the useful image, as I said that the complete data may not be useful. There may be some redundant information in the data. So for get rid of the redundant data, we select some of the features from that image data. So we have some feature extraction methods. So we can do it manually, or in deep learning, this step is absent. The feature extraction is directly done by the machine learning model. Then depending on the features we have extracted, the machine learning model will classify our images. Then we can use it for some application. Okay, so why this machine learning is becoming successful in agriculture is because of the mobile devices. From recent years, the mobile devices are quite available with the farmers. Then the mobile devices are also connected to the internet. So when we have a mobile device connected to the internet, we are saying we have the mobile internet. So because of the mobile internet, along with the GIS and spatial database. So it is provided by many government agencies as well as the private agencies. So it provides the maps like our Google Earth. It provides at what GPS coordinates, what is there, right? So we have the annotated data with the GIS database, and we have the internet, we have the mobile. The combination of all these technologies give us the location-based service. So the farmers can use GIS along with the internet connected to their computer or laptop that we call as web GIS, or they can use the GIS along with their mobile devices connected with the internet, which we call as the mobile GIS, or it can be on the laptop or the mobile. So we can use the machine learning models in farming based on the location, right? At what location we want to use the machine learning model in the field. Okay, so there are many softwares available for machine learning methods to work, not in agriculture, but in any discipline, right? So the most popular, maybe in the academic community, not in industry, is MATLAB. So MATLAB is a proprietary software, but for deep learning application, the MATLAB, my personal opinion is not that good, because MATLAB is very slow when we deal with huge amount of data. And in deep learning and machine learning, we are having huge amount of data. And we are having, say, other options like Java, Visual Studio, and Python. Python is becoming very popular in machine learning models because of the ready-made libraries available in Python. Then when we want to use the machine learning, because Python is a generic software, not only for machine learning, we use Python for website development, for banking, etc. But if we want to use the Python for machine learning models, so we have the specialized libraries which help which make our job easier if we use those libraries. And some of those libraries for machine learning using Python are OpenCV, Keras, TensorFlow. Actually, Keras is an API for TensorFlow. Then McCafe is there, NumPy is there if you are having some matrix data, some array data. Then Theano is there, then PyTorch and Apache MXNet is there. There are many libraries which we should make use of when we are developing the machine learning models. Of course, we can use with the generic Python without any library, but in that case, we have to develop our own functions, and that might be time consuming. Okay, so how the machine learning can help in the agriculture area is in 4 phases. So it helps us during seeding to see the soil conditions, for the plant protection, say disease of leaves, and also during the harvesting. So during the seeding phase, machine learning helps us to select the best seeds for our crop. So as we know that the seeds, we have the genetics, seed genetics. So there are millions of seeds. Is there any question? If not, please put the mic off. So with the because we know that the genetic data is huge data, so there is AT, GC combinations, right? So if we apply the machine learning algorithms on the genetic data of seeds, we can predict that which category of seeds are optimum for a particular crop. So we can choose the best seed for a specific set of conditions to get the good yield, crop yield. And for the plant protection, so on the plant leaves, there are many kinds of diseases also. There are many kinds of pests, insecticides also on the leaves. The machine learning models are very useful to detect and predict those kind of bad effects on the leaves. For example, there is some worm on the plant, so we should use some insecticides on the plants. But if we don't know what kind of this insect is, we cannot use a suitable insecticide. For this, we need to recognize what kind of insect is, then we use the relevant or the appropriate insecticide on the crop. For that, we can make use of machine learning models to see the type of insect. So again, you see, it is a classification problem. So we are having different types of worms or insects. So first we'll train the machine learning model by giving the training data set. Training data set in this case will be, we know what kind of worm or the insect it is, then we'll make the machine learning model to learn from that known data set, which is called the trained data set. After that, we'll do the validation from where we know the ground truth, we'll match with the machine learning output. Then we will capture the image with the camera. Then automatically it will suggest us what kind of spray we should use to make the leaf healthy. So for this to detect the insect and to see what category it belongs to, we use different types of the machine learning models. So on the right hand side, the different insects are there. So we have to train it for each insect at different scales, different orientations, under different elimination conditions, so that our machine model predictions are accurate enough. So some of the work we did for a master's thesis in our institute, that was on the detection of potato diseases using the machine learning techniques. In that case, the machine learning technique tool was sport vector machines. The sport vector machine is kind of a supervised machine learning technique where we can classify the data into several classes. So for example, let me show the right hand side, discuss the right side flow chart first. We have the image acquisition. Again, this image acquisition can be done using some camera. Then we use the pre-processing, if we remember all the generic steps of the machine learning models. Then we do the image segmentation. Then we extract the features. Then in feature extraction, there are different algorithms available. So grayscale co-occurrence matrix is one of the feature extraction methods. Then we classify the disease using the sport vector machines. This is one of the tools of the machine learning models. So on the left hand side, this is the image captured by some image, and on the right hand side, it shows the segmented image. Okay, so this shows the three categories of the plant leaves. On the right hand side, it is the healthy leaf without any disease. And on the left hand side, the two images are suffering from some disease. One disease name is a late blight disease, other is early blight disease affected. So if we are having a lot of images belonging to the late blight affected disease, if we are having many images belonging to the early blight affected disease, and if we gather many images which are healthy leaves. So say I gather 100 images of the leaves which are suffering from late blight affected disease, 100 images from the early blight affected disease, and 100 images which are healthy. Then out of these 100 plus 100 plus 100, I use 80 plus 80 plus 80 for the training of the machine learning model, and rest of the 20, 20 plus 20 plus 20, I use it for validation purpose to see whether my machine learning model has been trained to the desired accuracy or not. Then I will use the test data. Test data will be some image captured by the camera, image of the leaf. And I don't know the ground truth of that. By applying that leaf image to the machine learning model, I will see the output of the machine learning model. It will give me either one of the three outputs, either healthy one or late blight affected or the early blight affected leaf. So if our machine learning model has been trained good enough, so our predicted category of leaf should be the actual condition of the leaf. Okay, so these are some of the intermediate steps. So when we segmented the images, the late, I forgot the disease, late blight affected. So late blight affected disease, early blight detected disease, and the healthy leaf. So this is the segmented image. How do we perform the segmentation of the image data? Again, there are several methods. So I will not go into detail of that because those who are working in the imaginary data, they know about the segmentation. So we use some edge operations for getting the segmented images. But for this this lesson or this talk, so you can see, so we reduce the data size. You see there are so many pixels here in your raw image, but here most of the pixels are black. So we don't use those black pixels in a machine learning model. We use only the pixels which are not black. So what we have done is we have reduced the data size for reducing the computational time of the machine. Okay, so this is again in coherence with many few slides previously we have discussed, but in a different way. So we have the training data. From the training data, we extract the features. Then the feature vector, which is represented by HX, is given to a machine learning model. Once we select the model, we give the feature vector to the machine learning model. Then we apply some machine learning algorithm. As we said, there are different algorithms for the machine learning model. So when we apply some suitable algorithm to the machine learning model, it will give us the output. Then from the output, we'll see whether that output is fulfilling our desired metric or not, desired performance is achieved or not. If it is achieved, then it is okay, we can use it for predicting the new data, class of the new data. If it is not, then we'll again train the model with a different data set and we'll retrain the model. So this we can use for some soil data or some other image data as well. Then this slide is for the crop, potato crop disease we have discussed previously. So we do some pre-processing phase where we extract the leaf. Then sometimes we need to resize the image. Then we perform the image segmentation. From the segmented image, we extract the features. These features, where it will go to the machine learning algorithm. But before we give it to the machine learning model, first we need to split the data into the training and testing. So say 80% data we keep for training and 20% we keep for test. So once we train it on the training data set, then we apply the test data set and it will give us the classification. So if the classification accuracy is good enough, so now we are talking about the training, then it is satisfied. Then if it is not there, then we'll again train it. Then once it is trained, we can use it for the testing to make the predictions. Okay, so the application of the machine learning in pesticide spray is using, say, GPS. So we know that at what locations there is disease in the crop. So based on the location, we can spray the pesticides or on that particular location using drones. You see, it will say the amount of pesticides we use in the field. So if if there is huge field, so we need not to spray the pesticide in the complete field, right? So if there is some portion of the field which is suffering from the pest, so we need to spray it on that particular location. For that, we need to have some GPS sensor installed on that drone so that it can detect where that spray system is there. So let us talk a little bit about how the GPS data we use in machine learning models. So before that, there is one more slide on the harvesting also. So we can make use of machine learning models when we harvest the crops. For example, for the tomato crop, so we are having robotic arm which is picking up the tomato when it is fully ripened, right? So in that case also we can use a machine learning tools. In what way? For example, we have a camera installed on our assembly. It will see what is the color of that tomato. If it is having some particular shade of red color, that means it is ripened. Or we see the texture, we see the size. All this data is given to machine learning model. So if the machine learning model gives us the output that the tomato is ready for harvesting, so it will harvest that tomato. Okay, so this slide is just to tell you that machine learning is different from cognitive computing. In machine learning, what we do is we make the machines learn from the data, then the decisions are taken what the machines recommends as the output. But when we talk about the cognitive computing, so we use the machines as an assistance. So from the computer, it recommends us something, then it is up to us to take the decisions. Okay, so then machine learning also is used for surveillance purposes in the fields. For example, if there is huge field and we want to see if there is some human breaches are there, if there's some person is entering into your field or some animals are entering into your field which may harm your crop. So in that case also we can identify the person or animal so that we can take the appropriate action. Again, the machine learning plays a role. Then also the machine learning models are used in yield mapping. So we can map like the Google images, we can see where is the urban area, where is the forestry area. Here also in machine learning, we can use the yield mapping where the crop is raw, where the crop is ready for harvesting. We can show it with the different colors. So this is again a classification problem. So once we have trained the model, it will give us the yield map of the field. Okay, so remote sensing data is widely used in machine learning model. So we said that when we use the satellite data is remote sensing. If you see these two words, remote plus sensing. So we are sensing some variable using some remote techniques. Remotely we are sensing. So if you are sensing from the satellites are at a remote place, we have call it as remote sensing data. So we need not to use the data from the sensor which is installed in our field, but we can use the data from the sensors which we can have access remotely. So in that case, we have a satellite, we have some sensors installed on these satellites, and we have some plants, some forests, some grass, or some buildings. So the amount of radiation which is getting reflected and reaching to the sensor installed on the satellite, we get some image data, and satellite imagery we can download and use in the machine learning methods. So I will skip these slides little fast because I want to show you some hands-on using Python programming, how we can develop the machine learning model, because it is already 4:05 and 4:30 we have to close. So I want to keep say 20 minutes for hands-on. So I will finish these slides in next 5 minutes. So processing of the remote sensing data is like we are having sensor A, sensor B, so we are having many sensors on the satellites. Then we get huge amount of data from different sensors. These sensors are multispectral sensors. So as we said that in electromagnetic spectrum, we can make the sensor to work in IR region, in visible region, ultraviolet region, and so on. Again, in visible region, there are different colors, right? So we can have different colors. In IR also we are having near infrared, mid infrared, far infrared. So we can use the sensors at different regions of the electromagnetic spectrum. So basically the satellites is sensing the data in the field, and that sensor data is reaching to the sensor, to the satellites. Then we have access to that satellite data. We can display it on our computer and we can process it and use the machine learning algorithms. Okay, so sensors may be active sensors or the passive sensors. In passive sensor, we need not to radiate the energy. It takes the sunlight, whereas in active sensors, it emits some radiation and see how much radiation it scatters, it radiates back, and we capture that radiations. Okay, so basically we are having multispectral sensors and hyperspectral sensors. So multispectral sensors is having discrete bands, wide bands, whereas hyperspectral sensors, they are kind of continuous sensors. So they give the, they use the wavelength at very precise levels. Then there is some difficulty in sensor fusion, because let us say we are having some multispectral camera and we are also having the spectrometer both installed on the drone. So because we cannot fix the two sensors at the same location, the position of the two sensors is, there is little offset. So because of this offset, we have to make the sensor data, we have to combine the sensor data so that they come to the same set of axes. So sensor fusion is some area where people are working so that the data merging is proper. Then, as I said, that the satellite data is coming from the Landsat 8 dataset, where there are different bands. Basically, there are 11 bands. Some of the bands belong to, say, visible region, blue, green, and red. Some of the bands belong to the IR region. Then there is panchromatic. Then there is some metadata available to this Landsat 8 data bands. And again, this Landsat dataset is available on the internet, which is the satellite data. And you have to register for that website to get that data downloaded. So these are some of the data sets, snapshot of the data set, which is downloaded from the Landsat data set. So this is high dynamic range image data set. There are so many bands, but which band we need to use in the machine learning algorithm, that will depend upon our application. The below is a little segmented image. This is basically in Tamil Nadu, the Kamuthi. So those who are from Tamil Nadu, they might be knowing. So there is a big solar plant installed in Kamuthi, right? So in that case, some of the solar plants, they are installed in the agriculture area. So there is a lot of debate that why they have installed the solar plants in the agriculture area. So some people are saying it is good because the solar power is good to use. So in satellite imagery, we can use the machine learning methods to see which land is most suitable for agriculture purpose, which land is most suitable for installing the solar panels, and so on. And on the right hand side, there is some histogram equalization. As we said, that once we get the data, that may not be ready for machine learning models. So we have to do some pre-processing on the data. In image, one of the pre-processing steps is the image equalization, among many other pre-processing tasks which we apply on the image data. Okay, then Landsat 8 is one category of the databases which is available for satellite images. Another category of the satellite images which we can download is the MODIS images. MODIS images is having 36 bands. So 1 to 36. Some of the bands are, say, from visible for infrared, some is hypersensitive data, hyperspectral data, and some is, say, multiband data. So depending upon what kind of reason you want to use for machine learning models to learn, we can use that particular band. And the quantization you see here is 12 bits. So we said that it may be 8-bit or 12-bit or 16-bit and so on. Okay, so sensor fusion is when we are taking two sensors, we have to combine the data from all the sensors, because we want to give all the data to the machine learning algorithm so that the machine learning model can learn effectively. So sensor fusion, there are lot many issues and people are working on that so that the sensor fusion is effective for the machine learning models to give us the good accuracy. Then in the sensor fusion, there are some pre-processing steps because there is some difference in the axis, as we discussed, that we cannot install the sensors at the same position, and also there may be some time lag between the sensor output. Maybe some sensor is very fast, other sensor is slow. So they are capturing the same area at different times. So we have to take care of the time difference, also that optical axis, the position also. Then there is some misalignment in the data. Sometimes the sensor data starts dysfunctioning. For example, now we are working in Cisco WebEx. Sometimes the connection is breaks. So in that case, the data transfer is not there. Similarly, when we are installing the sensor, whether in our field or on the satellite, sometimes the sensor data is not captured. So in that case, there is some misalignment of the data that also we have to take care using a machine learning models. So this diagram shows how the misalignment of the sensor data is taken care. So if there is some misalignment data, so we use some algorithms so that the misalignment of the data is taken care. So as we said that for machine learning model, there are many softwares available, and especially when we are using the satellite data from the multispectral imaging cameras. So there are specialized softwares are there. For example, there are several GIS softwares. So ArcGIS is very popular among the GIS community, remote sensing community. Then we are having JumpGIS, Saga, and so on. And the programming languages, of course, we can use C++, Julia is there, PCL is Point Cloud Library, which is for 3D data. Then Python we can use in different platforms. Then MATLAB, OpenGL is there. Okay, so the remote sensing data, once we get it from the satellite imagery, so as we said, there are different bands in the remote sensing data, say maybe 12 bands or 8 bands or 36 bands. So it is called multi-channel images. So in conventional images, we're having 3 bands, say red, green, and blue. Then sometimes we need to do the registration. For example, one sensor is getting some image of some field, and the second sensor is getting part of that field. So we have to combine all this. So we have to bring the two images in the same orientation. That is called image registration. Then we need to sometimes do the image enhancement. If there is some lighting conditions are poor, so we can enhance the image. Then there is some gray level transformation. We can increase the intensity, brightness using the gray level transformation, and we make use of the histogram equalization to make the image better for machine learning algorithms to learn. Then we use the machine learning algorithm for the classification problem. For example, on the left hand side there is image which is captured by some camera, and on the right hand side the different colors gives the different categories of the contents of the image. For example, maybe red is for the forestry, white is for say urban area, this green is say for land, yellow is for land, say sky blue is for say water, and so on. Then there is some resampling. If the sensor data is used, sometimes we want to sparse the data, so we do the resampling. Okay, in fusion techniques, so when we want to combine the data from the two sensors, so there are different approaches. One is a pixel based. So the first this image is captured from one sensor. The second image is obtained from the second sensor. So when we want to combine this, so we take the corresponding pixels in the two sensor data and we put it into the new image. So this right hand side image, the fused image or the registered image. So we take the corresponding pixels in the two sensor data and put it into the resultant image, the registered image or the fused image. And sometimes we use the window based techniques. So in what we do is we select one pixel and we choose a neighborhood around that pixel, say 3 by 3 neighborhood. And we choose the corresponding pixel in the second image and we choose the same neighborhood size. Now we take the average of all these 9 pixels and we reduce it to a single pixel. So basically it is doing the image fusion as well as it is doing the image resampling. So 9 pixels, we are reducing it to a single pixel. So we have reduced the size from say 9 unit to 1 unit. So it is very good tool when we want to make the machine learning models to work fast. So there are some challenges in fusion of the remote sensing, like when the data is coming from multi-source, as we said that the multi-temporal data is the issue. So all the sensors are not working at the same time. There is spatial resolution because the data is not captured from the same position because the two sensors are installed at different places on the drone. And also there is spectral resolution. So maybe some data is working on IR region, other is working in the say mid IR region. So we have to take care of that. Then there is some sub-pixel accuracy also. So within the pixel, what is the pixel size for each sensor? Then there is some computational efficiency issue, and we do the accuracy assessment using some ground truth data. So I'm sorry if I'm going fast, but I have to go fast because I want to finish it in time, and I want to show some machine learning models also. Then there are some fusion components, as we discussed: pre-processing, feature extraction, feature matching, and we do the resampling. Then it shows how we do the fusion. So we have some control points that these are the two images which we want to fuse. So we use some control points. We combine these control points to get the fused image. So with this, we get a fused image. Fused image may be bigger in size, more resolution image than the individual images. Then there are some feature imaging methods, like we do the spatial transformation mapping and the radiometric translations. Then similarity measures, how those two images are similar. We are having different metrics like L2 norm, normalized cross correlation, and Mitchell information depending upon the dependency of the pixels of the two images. Then coming to the machine learning model, so in images we use a convolutional neural networks. Convolutional neural networks basically takes the raw image, then it extracts the features at different levels, say low level features, mid level features, high level features, then trainable classify. Low level features means it will extract the primitive shapes. For example, in the image there may be some straight lines, some circles. For example, if there is some tree in the field, right? So in that tree, if you see the stem is straight, right? So it will extract the straight stem. Then there are some branches. So branches are also straight lines, but these are smaller in size, small straight lines. So then we connect all these small branches. So that is mid-level features. So we connect the small branches into a single unit. Then we combine it to high-level features. High-level feature means we combine the different branches so that it becomes one portion of the tree. Then we give it to a machine learning algorithm for classification that this is this kind of tree. Then if you see the timeline of this machine learning algorithm, there are different architectures evolved over time. So it started with LeNet 5 then in 1998, then new architecture came AlexNet in 2000. In 2003, there was VGG 16, Inception V1 2006. Then in 2019, there is ResNet XT 50. So these are the different architecture, machine learning model architectures, which have been developed over time, and we can choose some of these models for our applications. So in machine learning, maybe because it is 7:30, I will take you to the screen share and show you how to use this machine learning model. So maybe 10 minutes just to give you the feel how to start with this. So for that, so what we do is, let me open the google.com here, google.com. So when I say google.com, I write Google Colab. So when I say Google Colab, so what is Google Colab? It is Google Colaboratory. So as we said that machine learning algorithm need lot of data, and to process lot of data, we need high power of computer, especially the GPU we need. But many of us, we do not have the GPU, we have the CPU. So Google has provided us a platform where we can use the GPU resources, Google GPU resources. For that, we use Google Colab. So in Google, I say Google Colab. So this type of windows comes. When this type of window comes, then I say new notebook. So when we say new notebook, it will give us a editor where we can write our machine learning models. So I will just tell you how to start with developing the machine learning models. So this type of window will come. So first it is called Jupyter Notebook. So here we can name that notebook. Say I say it is temp2. So I named this. Here I will write the codes for developing the machine learning model for say crop yield prediction. So for that, first I have to take some data and I have to give it to the machine learning model. But from where I should get the data? Data I can get it from my hard disk on my computer. I can take it from my Google Drive. I can take the data from online websites. So say I have the data on my Google Drive. For that, I want to connect my Google Drive to this laboratory. For that, so I will use from google.colab. From Google Colab, I want to import our drive. So if I run this, so this arrow is for running this command. So when I run this, so what it will do is it will try to connect your Google Drive with the Google Colab so that we can access our drive data and use that in the models which we will develop in Google Colab. Now this has been run. Now next is you can go to code plus here. It will open the next segment here. Now we want to mount this drive so that we can access that data. For that, the command is drive.mount. So those who have worked in Unix or Linux, they know we mount the hard disk in our Linux. So here, same way we mount our G drive into the Colab. So for that, we'll say we want to mount it. So for that, we'll say content G drive. So G drive. So I put this, then automatically it will say bracket close. So I this. Now this way it has mounted our drive. Now it is asking for our access. So do you want the Colab to access your Google Drive or not? So we need to give the authorization call. So those who are not still clear what this Colab is for, Colab we use to develop our machine learning models, but we do not want to develop our models with our computer because our computer is having CPU. We need high computation power of the computer. For that, we use Google Colab because in Google Colab, we can make use of GPUs provided by Google. So for that, I click on this authorization code. When I click on this, so that means it will say that I want to access my drive data. So it is saying that Google Colab wants to use this. I will say allow. So it says that copy this code into the window. So we say Control C. Now again we'll go to this. So I finish this. Okay, now it is saying mounted at content G drive. So that means your G drive has been imported to Google Colab and it has been mounted properly into the Colab. Now we can use our drive data for machine learning models. Next is, now as I said that, no, this program is in Python because in Colab it is using Jupyter Notebook and we write the codes in Python. Now, so far we have mounted our Google Drive with Colab. Now, as we said that there are different libraries available for developing our machine models. So one of the library is TensorFlow. TensorFlow is a library from Google. So we want to use TensorFlow for developing our machine learning model for say agriculture application. For that, we need to import TensorFlow. So then when we say import TensorFlow, we can give its nickname. Say import TensorFlow as TF. So we every time we need not to give TensorFlow, we can just write TF. So when we say this, so that means when we run this, it will import the TensorFlow. Again, it is optional. We can use machine learning models without TensorFlow also, but it will make our job easier because there are many functions already available in TensorFlow. We need not to write from scratch. We can make use of those functions available in TensorFlow. So once we import this, so we can either make another segment, or we can, in the same segment, we can write other code. Now from TensorFlow, so TensorFlow, we could have written only TF only, right? So there are many APIs. So Keras is one of the APIs in TensorFlow. From Keras, we want to use some, say, import data sets. We want to import layers, and we want to import some models. So what those, for those who didn't get what it is. So let me first run it, then when it is being run, I will tell what it is. Now, Keras is an API in TensorFlow library, and with that, we are importing the three things: the data sets, the layers, and the models. Because when we want to develop any machine learning model, we need the data set. Why we need the data set? Because we want to train the machine learning model. So this data set, we might have downloaded already on our Google Drive. That is why we have mounted our Google Drive, or we can have access to the online data set from the internet. For example, the Landsat 8 dataset, Sentinel dataset, or MODIS satellite dataset. For that, we are using import datasets. Then next is layers. So because this machine learning models is in different layers, so we add many layers. So we import layers and also models. As we said that there are already ready-made models available, or we can tailor our model. If you want to pick some ready-made models, so we have to import models here. So these are the two things we have done. So we have imported the data sets, layers, and models, and we have mounted our Google Drive. So next is, because we want to say do some plotting, etc. also. So maybe the time will not permit me to complete all this machine learning model using Colab, because when we develop it, it will take some time. But I have given you a startup how to start developing your model using Google Colab. So these are the some of the things you should do preliminary when you want to develop the model. So the next step, let me tell without typing it on the computer. So once we have done this import thing, then we have to download some data sets. So because we have said data sets, then we can say, you say download data set, then in bracket you can write the name of that data set, or you can give the website address from where you can download that data set, right? So once you download that data set, you split the data set into the training, validation, and testing. Once you split the data set, you add the layers in your machine learning model, you train the data set, then you validate the data set, then you use the test data to predict your outcomes. So this is how we develop the machine learning models using Google Colab. So I will not continue with this code because it will take some time. So I will now ask for some questions, if there are some questions in this context. So any questions, please?
Hello.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Sir, am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Sir, I have a question. Like, if we get the images from the Sentinel-2, if we get the data set from the Sentinel-2, so how to proceed with that? Actually, I'm not getting that idea. Once you download the image, how exactly we get the small images on which we'll train our algorithm? Like the ground, as you said, ground truth data would be used for the validation purpose. But for training data, how that? I'm not getting that idea.
Ma'am, for training data also, we know the ground truth. So that is why we are using it for training data. Training data means we know we have the data and we have the ground truth, and we give it to the machine. So we give the data and also we give it to the machine so that the machine can learn. That is the meaning of training data. So training data along with its ground truth, we give it to the machine to learn. After the machine has learned, what we do is we give the validation data without giving the ground truth data. So just ground truth data for the validation data, ground truth for the validation data, just we keep at back of our mind. Just we give the validation data and we see what is the output of our machine learning model. Whatsoever output the machine learning model has given us, we want to see whether it is correct or not. We will compare it with the ground truth, which we have kept on the back of our mind. If it is matching, that means the model has been trained correctly. If it is not matching, that means our model has not been trained good, right? So in that case, we will retrain it. Did it answer your
Sir,
question, ma'am?
Yeah. And sir, how to draw those polygons on the satellite image?
Okay, so for drawing the polygons on the satellite image, it depends. If you are using some ready-made software, say ArcGIS, you are using. So there is ready-made menu-driven file. So you can select some control points on the image, then it will draw the polygon. However, if you write your own program, then you have to do it using machine vision, computer vision techniques. You extract some features, then you can join or do the interpolation to get the polygons. So this is difficult to, first thing is it is difficult to explain this way until and unless we open that Sentinel data and we open the relevant software. And the second point is I never did it on the Sentinel data and draw the polygon. But broadly, I can tell we can use the ready-made software or we can use the computer vision techniques to draw the polygons.
Okay, sir. Thank you. Sir, I have one last question.
Sure, ma'am.
As you mentioned in the slides, there are few challenges when we work with the remote sensing. And one
Yes.
of the point was cloud cover. So apart from cloud cover, what are the other challenges are there when we get this?
Yeah, ma'am, other points are like sensor cloud cover is one. One is sensor noise itself is a challenge. So for that, so we should know the F number of the camera which is installed on the sensor or the satellite. So F number is very useful when we want to remove the say sensor noise, or we do some modeling so that we can reduce the sensor noise. So Wiener filtering is one of them when we don't know exactly about the reason for that sensor noise. So if we are having, say, if we make use of Wiener filtering, we can get rid of that sensor noise. So there are many other factors where we need to get rid of all these noises in the data. Missing data is one of them also. Sometimes we are not getting the data at some particular time or particular location, then we can do the interpolation. Again, machine learning methods are helpful to fill up the gaps. Sometimes we have to fill in the gaps. We have to take care of the missing data as well. This is also one of the challenges in satellite data, the missing data.
Okay, sir. Sir, last question.
Sure,
Sir,
ma'am.
is it possible to do the disease detection from the satellite images? Because now whatever things are available, so we capture the images and either we do the object detection and then check out what type of disease it is there. But is it possible to get this disease detection from the satellite images so that we can have this early detection?
Ma'am, I could not catch your word. Did you say how to detect the edge detection or something else?
No. Is it possible to do the early disease detection using satellite images?
Okay, early disease detection using satellite images. So that is what we are using by machine learning. So with machine learning, we download the satellite data from previous 5 years or 10 years, depending upon the past history of the data and knowing the ground truth, right? So we have the satellite data from the previous years and we know whether at that particular location there was disease or not. We make the machine learning models to learn from that previous data so that we can do the early disease prediction, early disease diagnosis as well. Did it answer your question or not?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thanks a lot, sir.
Thank you. So any other question, please? So if there is
Sir,
no more,
we
yes.
get data from the sensors. So in order to do this machine learning, so we have to send this data over the network now. So can you mention about that?
Ma'am, if I understood it correctly, you are asking that whenever we want to use some data for machine learning model, we always need to put the data on the network. Did I understand it correctly or not? Can you hear me, ma'am?
Sir, that is what is the scope of edge computing?
What is the scope of? Please repeat.
Edge computing, sir. EDGE.
EDG. Ma'am, I've
Edge computing.
never heard about this. I'm
Sam
not
is asking
into
about
that
edge
term.
computing.
Asking about what computing? Maybe I'm not aware of that term.
Edge computing. Edge computing.
Edge computing.
Yeah.
I'm not quite familiar with this term, so I know edge we detect it from the images, but if it is different, so I'm not about very much sure about that. Any other question, please?
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. So if there is no more question, so I would like to close this session here. So tomorrow again morning, please join us. So thank you very much for attending it.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your valuable session on agriculture application of machine learning. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So I close this.
Thank you, sir.
Our next session will be at 9 a.m. tomorrow. Okay.